In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Welcome to Journey to Jannah, where timeless wisdom meets the present day. Here we bring you audiobook-style biographies of the greatest minds in Islamic history, scholars, thinkers, and reformers who shaped the course of knowledge, faith, and civilization. From Imam Abu Hanifa to Ibn Sina, from Al-Ghazali to Sayyid Qutb, each story is a journey through trials, triumphs, and unwavering dedication to the pursuit of truth. Sit back, reflect, and let your heart travel through centuries of Islamic heritage. One voice, one story, one lesson at a time. Subscribe now and begin your journey toward knowledge, inspiration, and Jannah, inshallah. Journey to Jannah, where knowledge lives. A mind beyond his time, the story of Ibn Sina.
In a land swept by golden sands and illuminated by the light of knowledge, one man's mind would burn brighter than most, a beacon of wisdom that guided generations long after his death. Born into an age of scholarship, war, and empire, Abu Ali al-Hussein ibn Abdullah ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, became a name etched into the stones of history. But behind the famous name lies a deeper story, not just of intellect, but of struggle, exile, discovery, and a burning hunger for truth. This book does not recount his life as a list of facts and dates. Instead, it tells the story as if Ibn Sina himself walked beside you through the vibrant bazaars of Bukhara, the candlelit libraries of Ray, the royal courts of Isfahan, and the lonely roads of exile. It brings his world to life in vivid scenes and conversations, allowing you to feel what he felt: the pressure of expectation, the thrill of discovery, the pain of rejection, and the triumph of knowledge. You will see not only the physician and philosopher, but also the boy, the wanderer, the rebel, and the seeker of divine truth. Let us begin this journey. The wind swept across the plains of Afshana, stirring the dust that clung to the low mud-brick homes of the village. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long golden shadows across the fields where boys ran barefoot and laughing. But one boy stood apart, not in distance, but in spirit. His name was Hussein ibn Abdullah ibn Sina, though most would come to know him simply as Ibn Sina, a name that would echo across the centuries. Afshana, a modest village near Bukhara, was neither wealthy nor particularly learned, but it held something far more valuable. A family who believed that the mind was a gift to be sharpened like a sword. Ibn Sina's father, Abdullah, was a respected Persian official, known for his discipline and intellect. Though a devout man, he was also curious, drawn to ideas that drifted beyond tradition. His home, unlike many in Afshana, welcomed scholars, travelers, and thinkers of all kinds. From an early age, young Ibn Sina was surrounded by books and conversation. He would often sit quietly in the corner of the majlis, listening to men speak of stars, spirits, geometry, and the soul. At first, the words were puzzles to him, but puzzles he ached to solve. He learned the Arabic alphabet by the age of 4 and was reading fluently before he turned 6. When he spoke, it was always with calm clarity beyond his years. His mother, gentle and wise, nurtured him with stories. Knowledge, she would say, is the only wealth that multiplies when shared. She never tired of answering his endless questions, even when he would wake her in the dead of night, asking why the moon followed him as he walked. By the time he was 10, Ibn Sina had memorized the Quran in its entirety and was already proficient in Arabic grammar, poetry, and Islamic jurisprudence. But it was logic and mathematics that began to set his soul alight. His first teacher, a man named Abu Mansur, marveled at how quickly the boy grasped complex ideas. "He doesn't just learn," he once said, "he consumes knowledge like a man drinks water in the desert." But Afshana was too small for a mind so large. Abdullah decided to move his family to Bukhara, the capital of the Samanid dynasty, and one of the intellectual hubs of the Islamic Golden Age. There, the boy would have access to libraries, scholars, and teachers far beyond the reach of his village. The road to Bukhara was dusty and long, but Ibn Sina made it in wonder. He stopped to observe the stars at night, asked questions of travelers, and memorized the plants and rocks along the way. He was not simply walking toward a city, he was walking toward destiny. In Bukhara, the world opened to him like a book. The house of knowledge there was unlike anything he had ever seen. Hundreds of volumes lining the shelves, manuscripts from Persia, India, Greece, and China, their pages filled with wisdom that had crossed deserts and seas. And yet, even here, he stood out. Teachers soon realized there was little they could offer that he didn't already know or wouldn't quickly surpass. He studied Aristotle's metaphysics and Euclid's geometry before the age of 16. Medicine, however, intrigued him the most, not merely for its science, but for its compassion. To know the body, he would later write, is to understand the soul's house. He began treating patients while still a teenager. His fame spread so quickly that even the Emir of Bukhara summoned him to treat a mysterious illness. Ibn Sina, calm and observant, diagnosed the condition with surgical precision. In return, he was granted access to the royal library, a treasure trove of rare and ancient texts, some of which he would later reference in his masterworks. But it was not just brilliance that shaped the boy, it was his discipline. He would sleep little, study much, and when puzzled by a concept, he would pray, reflect, and sometimes pace the night in thought. His spiritual commitment was never severed from his intellectual pursuit. One night, after struggling to understand Aristotle's metaphysics, he grew so frustrated he wept. He had read the text 40 times, and still its meaning eluded him. But he persisted. The breakthrough came not from the book itself, but from a commentary by Al-Farabi, which unlocked the hidden clarity within the words. That night, he offered a prayer of gratitude and gave alms to the poor. In every sense, Ibn Sina was becoming something rare, a man of both science and soul. By the time he turned 18, his name was whispered with awe among the scholars of Bukhara. But he was only just beginning.
The young healer of Bukhara.
The city of Bukhara, with its bustling markets and libraries tucked behind sandstone walls, had always been a crossroads of culture and scholarship. Yet within one modest home, a quiet revolution was unfolding. The boy who once watched his father study the stars was now consulting medical texts thicker than his arms. By the age of 10, Ibn Sina had already memorized the Quran and mastered Arabic grammar and literature, but his restless mind hungered for more than words. It longed to understand the nature of the world, the mysteries of life and death, and the cause of the pains that plagued human flesh. His father's house had become something of a salon of ideas, frequented by scholars, astronomers, and philosophers. The young Ibn Sina would sit silently in the corner, absorbing every debate on geometry, logic, or the soul like a sponge. Soon, he was no longer just listening, he was challenging them. "Your argument lacks precision," he once told a seasoned philosopher during a debate on Aristotle. The room fell silent. The man chuckled. "Who taught you to say that, boy?" "Aristotle," the child replied, "a medical prodigy." By 12, Ibn Sina turned his attention to medicine, not because he dreamed of being a doctor, but because, as he would later write, "I found it easier than mathematics and metaphysics." What others found mysterious, he found mechanical. The pulse, the breath, the digestion of food. These were systems, and systems could be learned. By age 16, he was already practicing medicine, not by the book, but by intuition. He could diagnose without hesitation, recommend treatments with clarity, and understand what even seasoned physicians missed. News of the young genius spread beyond Bukhara's walls. Rich merchants, noblemen, and even foreign envoys sought his counsel. But it wasn't until he was summoned to the Samanid royal court that his destiny took a decisive turn, healing a king. The Samanid ruler, Nu ibn Mansur, had fallen gravely ill. The royal physicians had tried every remedy, every poultice and potion known to them, but none succeeded. In desperation, a court advisor mentioned the boy physician from Bukhara. The palace guards arrived unannounced at Ibn Sina's door. His father looked worried. His mother crossed her arms in silence. But the young man stepped forward and said simply, "Take me." Inside the marble chambers of the palace, he examined the ruler carefully, not just with instruments, but with eyes trained by study and intuition. After several days of tending and treatment, the ruler began to recover. Whispers echoed through the halls. "The boy has healed the king." In gratitude, the ruler offered Ibn Sina access to the royal library of the Samanids, a legendary archive said to house the rarest manuscripts in the Islamic world. The boy had healed a body, and in return had been handed the keys to a treasure trove of knowledge. From that moment, he wrote, "My learning expanded more rapidly than ever before. A student, no more." By the time most young men were just beginning their studies, Ibn Sina had already surpassed his teachers. He dove into books on physics, logic, metaphysics, astronomy, and even poetry. He found flaws in existing texts and began writing notes in the margins, notes that would one day become treatises of their own. He had become, unmistakably, a scholar in his own right. But the city that raised him was about to enter troubled times. The Samanid dynasty was weakening. Armies loomed on the borders. Bukhara would not remain safe forever. Still, for Ibn Sina, the world of ideas had only begun to open.
A world in turmoil.
The golden days of Bukhara were fading. By the time Ibn Sina was in his late teens, the Samanid dynasty, once a proud patron of culture and scholarship, was crumbling under the weight of internal strife and external pressure. The once thriving kingdom was now plagued by court conspiracies, tribal conflicts, and threats from rival powers like the Ghaznavids and Karakhanids. For scholars like Ibn Sina, who had thrived in the protective shadow of Samanid rulers, this political shift was deeply unsettling. His days in the royal library were cut short, his access to courtly discussions restricted, and his beloved Bukhara became a city gripped by fear. "I saw books burned and libraries emptied," he would later recall. The swords of men destroyed what centuries of thought had built. A scholar on the run. At just 21, Ibn Sina was forced to leave Bukhara. With a few belongings and a handful of manuscripts, he began his life as a wandering scholar, a path that would take him across the heart of Persia, from the dusty roads of Gurganj, Khwarazm, to the grand courts of Ray, Qazvin, and beyond. Everywhere he went, he encountered two worlds, one of politics, where rulers rose and fell with brutal swiftness, and one of ideas, where truth endured, preserved in ink and memory. In Gurganj, he found temporary refuge under the patronage of Ma'mun ibn Ma'mun, the ruler of Khwarazm and a supporter of scholars. For a time, Ibn Sina worked alongside al-Biruni, another towering intellect of the age. Their conversations, it is said, were as rich and intense as any royal council. But peace did not last. The region, too, came under threat, and once again, Ibn Sina fled. "I carried no weapon but my books," he wrote. "I defended myself with knowledge, not with the sword, debating kings, outwitting warlords." As his fame grew, so did his danger. Rulers wanted him as a court physician, an astrologer, a philosopher, but few trusted his mind. They feared what he might write, or worse, what he might influence. In Ray, a city near modern-day Tehran, he served the Buyid ruler Majd al-Dawla, whose court was more interested in medicine than metaphysics. Ibn Sina found little joy here. His movements were watched, his writings questioned. When he grew restless, he disappeared into Qazvin, then Hamadan. Sometimes he traveled in disguise. Sometimes he rode openly with soldiers. And yet, he always found time to write. It was during this period of wandering that Ibn Sina began composing his magnum opus, a medical text so vast in scope and depth that it would define medical science for over 600 years. But the full story of that work, and the sacrifices made to complete it, would come later. The flame of curiosity. Despite poverty, betrayal, and the collapse of the institutions that once nurtured him, Ibn Sina never stopped studying. In every town, he sought out booksellers and scholars, copied manuscripts by candlelight, and gave lectures wherever he could. Young students followed him like disciples. They called him Sheikh al-Rais, the master of masters. He had the soul of a lion and the patience of a monk. One pupil would write, "He feared no king, but bowed before truth." Though his homeland was in disarray and his future uncertain, one thing remained clear. Ibn Sina was not just surviving, he was forging a legacy that would outlive dynasties.
The canon begins.
In the city of Hamadan, nestled among the jagged hills of western Persia, Ibn Sina found both refuge and responsibility. At first, he arrived as a stranger, thin from travel, his robes dusty, a worn satchel of notes slung across his shoulder. But his reputation had already preceded him. Word spread fast. The legendary young physician and philosopher had come. Within weeks, he was summoned to the court of Shams al-Dawla, the ailing Buyid ruler of Hamadan. The king suffered from violent colic, and none of the local physicians had been able to relieve him. When Ibn Sina was brought before him, he diagnosed the illness swiftly, prescribed a regimen, and restored the king's health in days. As a reward, Shams al-Dawla appointed him vizier, second only to the king in power. From the art of healing, Ibn Sina would later say, "I was thrown into the art of ruling, from scrolls to system." In the midst of palace intrigue and military campaigns, Ibn Sina turned back to what mattered most to him: knowledge. At night, by the dim glow of oil lamps, he began drafting what would become his masterwork, the Al-Qanun fi al-Tib, or the Canon of Medicine. It wasn't just another medical book. Ibn Sina envisioned it as the complete system of medicine, an encyclopedic work that gathered all known medical wisdom from Greece, India, Persia, and the Islamic world, combined with his own insights from years of treating patients. He divided it into 5 volumes. 1. General Medical Principles. 2. Simple Drugs and Materia Medica. 3. Diseases specific to particular organs. 4. Diseases not specific to one organ. 5. Pharmacology and compound treatments. Each volume was meticulously organized, blending the humoral theories of Hippocrates and Galen with Ibn Sina's own observations. He described diseases like tuberculosis, diabetes, and even the transmission of infection, centuries before germ theory was formalized in Europe. "Medicine is not a trade," he wrote, "but a noble science rooted in compassion, interruptions, and imprisonment." But Hamadan was not always peaceful. Shams al-Dawla died, and his successor grew suspicious of Ibn Sina's influence. Rumors swirled that he was practicing sorcery, that he was planning to flee, that he was too wise for his own good. The once celebrated scholar was imprisoned in a fortress near the city. There, in the damp confines of a stone cell, he continued writing. He used scraps of parchment, charcoal, even walls when necessary. With no access to reference texts, he reconstructed entire medical theories from memory, an act that stunned future scholars who would study his work. "The body may be caged," he wrote in his prison notes, "but the mind has wings." A quiet triumph. After months in captivity, a political shift allowed Ibn Sina to be released. He left Hamadan quietly, but not without scars. Still, he carried with him the completed drafts of the Canon's first volumes. The world would not see the full impact of the Canon for years, but its seeds were now planted. Ibn Sina, doctor, philosopher, prisoner, had not just documented medicine. He had elevated it to an art of reason and ethics, where diagnosis required logic and healing began with understanding. The Canon was far from finished, but so too was his journey.
The Philosopher and the Flame.
After his release from Hamadan, Ibn Sina journeyed eastward. The roads were dangerous, ruled by shifting alliances and petty warlords. But he was no longer just a doctor. He had become a living legend, and rulers across Persia and Central Asia vied for his presence. He eventually found shelter in Isfahan under the protection of Ala al-Dawla, a cultured and intellectual ruler of the Kakuyid dynasty. It was here, among libraries, scholars, poets, and mathematicians, that Ibn Sina's mind would burn brightest. If Hamadan was the forge, he would later reflect, then Isfahan was the flame, the fusion of faith and reason. In Isfahan, Ibn Sina turned his full attention to philosophy. He began writing Kitab al-Shifa, the Book of Healing, a monumental philosophical work that sought to unite all knowledge, from logic to metaphysics, from mathematics to music. Unlike the Canon, which was medical, the Book of Healing was philosophical and scientific, a sweeping attempt to chart the cosmos and the human soul within it. He wrestled with the ideas of Aristotle, filtered through Islamic theology, and fused them with Neoplatonism. The result was a distinctive Islamic philosophy now known as Avicennism. His core idea that existence and essence are not the same. Only God's essence guarantees existence. Everything else, stars, souls, thoughts, and matter, exists because of a chain of causality, a necessary overflow from the first cause. That which exists necessarily has no cause. All else flows from it. This idea would echo through centuries of Islamic, Jewish, and Christian thought, the inner flame. But philosophy wasn't just theory for Ibn Sina, it was a way of understanding the self. In the quiet hours of the night, he would sit beneath the stars, pondering the nature of the soul. In his famous flying man thought experiment, he asked, "Imagine a man suspended in air, blindfolded, with no senses. Would he still be aware of his own existence?" His answer? Yes. The soul is aware of itself, independent of the body. This was radical and profoundly spiritual. It hinted at an immortal soul, distinct from flesh. "I am not this body," he once wrote. "I am that which knows it." A scholar's life. By day, he taught. By night, he wrote. Dozens of students flocked to Isfahan just to listen to his lectures. He debated with scholars, wrote responses to critics, and drafted new chapters of both the Canon and the Book of Healing. His mind was unrelenting. He wrote over 400 books and treatises, only a fraction of which survive today. And yet, despite his genius, he lived humbly. His earnings modest, his pleasures simple. Music, poetry, and conversation. The goal of knowledge, he said, is not pride, it is truth.
War and Wisdom.
Shadows over Isfahan. The peaceful years in Isfahan were not to last forever. The region was fracturing under the weight of political upheaval. The Ghaznavids to the east and the Seljuks from Central Asia were advancing, hungry for power. Though Ala al-Dawla's court remained a sanctuary for scholars, the drums of war grew louder each year. Ibn Sina, now in his late 40s, was no longer just a philosopher or physician. He had become a political advisor, a diplomat, and at times, reluctantly, a negotiator between empires. His intelligence made him valuable. His fame made him dangerous. He accompanied Ala al-Dawla on military campaigns, not as a soldier, but as a strategic thinker. During marches, he wrote between battles, carrying his ink and parchment through camps and mountain passes. Even when swords are drawn, he once told a student, truth must be written. The philosopher in the field. During one such campaign, Ibn Sina fell seriously ill, likely due to exhaustion, harsh travel conditions, and an old intestinal wound. Still, he refused to stop writing. Even as soldiers fought around him, he drafted new passages of the Book of Salvation and annotated his earlier works. His companions described him as having fevered eyes and trembling hands, yet composing paragraphs of flawless Arabic philosophy. "My body may falter," he told his physician, "but my mind still burns." His resilience amazed everyone. not just for his stamina, but for his refusal to give up his intellectual pursuits, even amid chaos. The final contributions. In these later years, he wrote some of his most distilled and powerful texts, compact works on logic, ethics, and metaphysics. He revised sections of the Canon of Medicine, bringing sharper clarity to diagnostics and treatments. He also penned deeply mystical works, like the Eastern philosophy, Al-Hikmah al-Mashriqiyah, a text infused with spiritual symbolism, merging rational analysis with the insights of intuition and illumination. For Ibn Sina, reason and revelation were not enemies, but complementary paths toward truth. There are truths the intellect grasps by effort, he wrote, and truths the soul sees at once. These writings hinted at a spiritual journey, a philosopher now seeking something beyond knowledge.
Illness and introspection.
Signs of decline. By the time he entered his late 50s, Ibn Sina's health began to falter. A mysterious abdominal illness plagued him, recurring bouts of pain that no remedy could fully relieve, not even his own. Despite being the most celebrated physician of his time, he was now forced to confront the reality that even the healer cannot always heal himself. Al-Juzjani watched with growing concern. He grew thinner, he later wrote, yet his eyes still burned with intellect. Ibn Sina treated himself with complex regimens, enemas, herbal tinctures, strict diets, but his condition worsened. He insisted on continuing his duties at court and his nightly writing sessions, pushing his body beyond reason. "I prefer a short life filled with meaning," he once told Al-Juzjani, "to a long one of idleness. Turn toward the spiritual." As his body weakened, his spirit deepened. His philosophical writings turned more personal, less about abstract categories, more about the soul's journey. He wrote extensively on the nafs, soul, distinguishing between the vegetative soul, growth and reproduction, the animal soul, desire and movement, and the rational soul, the divine spark within us. He believed that the rational soul continues after death, moving to a higher realm, not as a mere shadow, but as pure knowledge connected with the ultimate reality. In the Eastern philosophy, Al-Hikmah al-Mashriqiyah, he described a spiritual journey where the soul separates from physical distractions and moves toward enlightenment. Death, he wrote, is not an end, it is a return. These thoughts became a source of peace for him as his physical health declined. One evening, sensing the inevitable, he composed a short poem, now inscribed in countless calligraphy pieces across the Islamic world. "The soul, I came from the heavens, and I return, though the world has tempted me with form. A stranger to earth, I pass through time. My homeland is not soil, but sublime." It was both an elegy and a declaration that his life, though spent among kings and courts, was ultimately a pilgrimage toward truth.
The final journey.
A fateful departure. In 1037 CE, the city of Isfahan was under threat. The Ghaznavids, old rivals of the Buyid court, prepared an attack. The court of Ala al-Dawla decided to leave Isfahan for Hamadan, and Ibn Sina, despite his illness, insisted on traveling with them. His companions pleaded, but he remained firm. Better to die in service than to wither in retreat. He was carried on a litter, too weak to ride a horse. The desert sun was merciless. Each jolt in the journey worsened his pain. Al-Juzjani, ever at his side, tried to ease his suffering, cooling cloths, medicinal draughts. But Ibn Sina no longer responded. The final days in Hamadan. Once they reached Hamadan, his condition sharply declined. He stopped eating. His voice softened to whispers, but he remained lucid. Even in his final days, he discussed metaphysics and the soul with Al-Juzjani and scribes. Then, quietly, he asked for a copy of the Quran. He spent his last hours reciting verses, especially, "Indeed, we belong to Allah, and to Him we shall return." Surah Al-Baqarah 2156. He gave away his belongings, freed his servants, and refused further treatment. "What God wills shall be," he told Al-Juzjani. And on the first Friday of Ramadan in 1037, Ibn Sina breathed his last. He was 58 years old. A quiet burial. He was buried in Hamadan, not as a grand vizier, but as a seeker of truth. His tomb remains there to this day, a quiet site visited by scholars, physicians, and admirers of knowledge from around the world. Legacy beyond the grave. His death was not the end. His writings, from the Canon of Medicine to the Book of Healing, from poems to treatises on soul and reason, continued to shape minds for centuries. In East and West alike, he became Avicenna, the standard by which intellect and inquiry were measured. For the seekers who came after, he became more than a man. He became a symbol of the possible union between faith and reason, body and soul, science and spirit.
Alhamdulillah for joining us on this journey through the life of one of Islam's great scholars. We hope this story inspired your heart and deepened your connection with the rich legacy of Islamic knowledge. If you found benefit in today's episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Journey to Jannah, your home for Islamic biographies, wisdom, and timeless guidance. New episodes are uploaded regularly, so turn on the notification bell to never miss a moment of insight. May Allah increase us all in beneficial knowledge and guide us on the path of the righteous. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.